Hey, it's Elizabeth coming to you from the Walker Consulting Works studio and the Dear Business Coach podcast. Want to announce to you the first episode of Exposing Excellence with Roanoke Valley Leaders. That's June 12th, Wednesday. My guest is Sheri Winesett. She is a Roanoke Valley leader, and this is her book. It actually just arrived today, Transparent Leadership for Women Who Mean Business. Again, there's Sheri Winesett, the author. Join us on Exposing Excellence with Roanoke Valley Leaders. It's a limited summer series on the podcast here with, you guessed it, leaders in the area of Roanoke Valley and surrounding areas talking about leadership. So join me on the podcast. If you are a subscriber to email, then you will get dedicated emails to your inbox with each guest, links to them, links to their work. And you can check that out at dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com/subscribe. All right. Looking forward to hearing from you. And that's dearbusinesscoachpodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to write into the show. My name is Elizabeth. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Today, we want to tell you about a friend of the Dear Business Coach podcast. If you're thinking about renovating your home or business, check out our friends at Active Wall. Located in Martinsville, Virginia, Active Wall produces high-quality moving, window, wall, and door systems that open up your space. Their innovative product lines include folding units, pivot doors, and gas strut windows that are custom designed to add style, function, and wow factor to residential and commercial settings. Energy efficient, thermally broken aluminum and proprietary hardware are at the core of Active Wall's design process. Their skilled team collaborates closely with architects, designers, and homeowners across the nation to ensure that the aesthetic and functional needs of the end customer are met. The products are made in the USA and they ship nationwide. Active Wall has a showroom and design center in Martinsville that is open by appointment so you can see and feel the quality of their craftsmanship. As a special for listeners of the Dear Business Coach podcast, you can use the promotional code Elizabeth for 5% off your order. Visit activewall.com/Elizabeth for more information and a free quote. Thank you to Active Wall of Martinsville, Virginia, for being a friend of the Dear Business Coach podcast. Visit activewall.com/Elizabeth to discover how Active Wall can open up your space. Hey, this is Elizabeth coming back to you from the Walker Consulting Works studio. Hey, wanted to let you know about a summer series on the podcast, special release, Exposing Excellence with Roanoke Valley Leaders. This is for June, July, and August. Bring out your podcast for your summer, listening by the pool, at the beach, on a mountain climb. You never know where you'll go this summer, but you can bring the Dear Business Coach podcast with you. All right. And looking forward to learning more about you and your work. Please write into the show at dearbusinesscoachpodcast@gmail.com. All right. Now back to the show. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to the Dear Business Coach podcast. Sheri, how are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So we're here today to talk about your new book, and I will read really quickly your what I call your bio, your about section on LinkedIn, and that's how we met. So I got permission from you to read this out loud, and I hope I do a good job. And so what we're also talking about is getting on the wait list, but by the time this episode is released, folks can go ahead and find it. So listeners, keep in mind that while we're talking, the book is now out for you. So
Yeah.
Sheri Winesett, get on the waiting list for my book, she says in her about section, Transparent Leadership for Women Who Mean Business. And that's transparencyinleadership.com. I help CEOs and their executive teams gain massive traction in their business. As an entrepreneur, business coach, and former franchise executive, I have a passion for scaling businesses and bringing innovation to market. I'm a builder and the glue that holds the team together. I help business owners increase their revenue by 46% and their profits by 61%. I
Mhm.
work with leaders to build a transparent culture in their organization that helps them achieve massive growth. I connect companies with collaborative strategic partners to create more impact. For more than 25 years, I've worked in biz ops, biz development, strategic partnerships, and organizational development. Integrator, maximizer, achiever. Sheri Winesett.
Thanks.
Now, yeah, and well, what should I start with first? I have a couple of questions here, so I know we have a, a packed 30 minutes together, but basically, the first question is why women? I heard you say recently in an interview that you have a story behind coming to that focus. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so I believe so in my story, I was saying that I had the idea for this book for 9 years, but I had the outline written and everything, but I never moved forward with it. And one of the reasons was because I wasn't ready, right? There was just more to experience. There was a reason why I wasn't just getting that nudge and that push to go ahead and write the book. But the other big factor for me was understanding who I was going to target. And that didn't come to me 9 years ago. 9 years ago, I was like, well, everybody needs this. Everyone should hear this. And then I actually started working with a client who's a trainer, does a lot of training on mindset, and he's a great coach as well. And he said something one day that really resonated with me. And he said, help the person you used to be. And I was like, aha, that's it. I want to help women. I want to help females who, have that drive and a great career and want to keep it on track. But at times, maybe they feel like they're getting off track or wearing too many hats personally and professionally. So that's really how I came up with it, because I just really felt like I could be very authentic in my book, right? Being able to relate to them because it's the person I used to be.
Right. And that happens for you in that aha moment. I'm wondering, um, did it change the way that you speak about yourself? Did it make you reflect differently when you say, "Oh, that's the woman that I used to be?" You went from for everybody, and then now you're talking to that woman that you used to be. Did that come into focus for you a little bit? I guess in thinking about
Yeah,
promoting the book, now you have to figure out how to talk to me, right? I'm listening to
right.
you.
Well, again, I think it just made it more natural. Like it really helped me get into the flow of my book because I could totally tell my story and have it be really relatable. So it did change, just it didn't change the outline. It didn't say, change the 7 keys to become a transparent leader. But, I was able to say, hey, I was this person too. I used to make the following statements. I'm tired of herding cats. I'm exhausted. This toxic workplace is running me down. Or I'm tired of feeling needed, because I was wearing so many hats. There were times where I wanted to throw in the towel. And I know that, a lot of females and certainly some males, right? But this is my story. Like I was wearing so many hats, but I was so driven in my career and given so many amazing opportunities. But at times I was like, is this it? Or should I give up my career and just, focus on just my children, which is okay too. But that's not the path I decided to take. And so, women have unique abilities. And really what I found is that, by leveraging those strengths, wearing all those other hats, I was able to become a better leader, but a more well-rounded leader just in all areas of my life. So, yeah.
Also joining us this summer series, Exposing Excellence with Roanoke Valley Leaders, is John Lusher. You can find him on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/John Lusher. He's the chaos coordinator at the Social Buzz Lab, a strategy first digital marketing team helping brands, B2B companies, and individuals build buzz on social media for over 15 years, fueled by coffee and a love of marketing. So catch John Lusher here on Exposing Excellence with Roanoke Valley Leaders, a limited summer series for June, July, and August here on the Dear Business Coach podcast with me, your host, Elizabeth Walker. Join us every other Wednesday during the summer for a limited summer podcast series, Exposing Excellence with Roanoke Valley Leaders. Don't forget to subscribe on dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com/subscribe. And this way you can receive emails each week with dedicated links to the episodes and contact information for each professional highlighted on the show.
You have to go hang out with your team on the weekends, but you have to be empathetic. You have to be an active listener. In order for them to catch on to your vision, they have to like you. And so just be yourself, be relatable to them.
Now, you also outlined some things on your site and about the book where you talk about getting into impactful team meetings and how to get to the way I'm interpreting things is kind of get to the point, get to supercharge your team meetings. Like, what are we really talking about and celebrating here? And you talk about active listening. And so when you are the series that this episode is coming out for, right, is Exposing Excellence with Roanoke Valley Leaders 2024. And so that means two things, right? We're listening to you because you know how to study excellence in leadership in your experience. And that means how to expose excellence in your team, right? Isn't that what you're doing in your book, is trying to relate to your team, to expose the excellence? Those are my words to ask you how you do that.
Yeah, I think it's really just, how do you become someone that others actually want to follow? So there's 7 keys, and a really key one is alignment. So through alignment, that has a lot to do with communication, like communicating consistently, regular updates, setting expectations, what is the progress towards the vision? How do you keep your team members informed? You can have regular team meetings. You can do, but they have to be effective meetings. They can't just be like, we all show up and waste an hour, right? They have to be run to have very specific outcomes, and they need to be run in the same way. And everyone needs to be able to participate in those meetings. And that's why it's really key to choose a system or develop a system for your meetings, and go over things, that people like KPIs, and have people report their own KPI. And so communication is key. It's involving the team. We want to get out of this mode of just managing a team. And, like, we don't work in factories anymore, right? We're not managing the line. We have to be able to develop these relationships. And what I've seen is the biggest breakdown, whether it's in your personal or professional life, when there is conflict created or things are being made up or assumed, it's a breakdown in communication. Somewhere there was a lack of communication or a lack of transparency.
Right. So I've heard people say the word over communicate and in a positive way, right? Saying that we want to over communicate. And I don't know if I guess I could use that term both ways, right? Can you over communicate, like just another email versus getting the message across? I'm sort of going off book here on my interview script, but I'm asking you about that word, right? What can you point me in the right direction here with that term?
It's interesting. I used to say there is no such thing as over communication, but in fact, there is. Well, let me explain that. It's how you communicate. You just have to communicate effectively. And so not everybody communicates the same way. So, for a leader to say, "Hey, I sent you 10 emails on that." Maybe that person on their team, that's not their communication, way, or their how they communicate most effectively. And so a lot of times leaders, I've heard leaders say, well, I'm this type of leader. And it's like, well, the great leaders are all types of leaders because you really want to adapt to everybody on your team. We all have different communication styles, right? Some of us are visual, some of us are auditory, some of us are kinesthetic, right? We've all heard that before. So don't just be this one type of leader. If you want to be really effective, figure out how people on your team need to be communicated with to get the best results. So I think the key is communicating effectively, right? When I say it's a lack of communication, that could also be like too many meetings that aren't structured for effective outcomes. So people feel like they're time wasters, right? That would be an example.
Right. And sort of lose energy and lose attention and things like that. Yeah. Well, now let's see if I can pick out a couple of things because I know that you mentioned some specifics when I'm looking at your website, when I'm looking or your book, yes, your website and your profile. You are giving some key pointers right away. Like I see uncover low-hanging fruit. It sounds like I can actually like book a time with you to talk, and it sounds like you're going down a path to help me start finding some things right away in my business. To using, I think your words here, using immediate impact and positive change. So, yeah, what does that look like? Okay, I know how to find you on LinkedIn, and it's transparencyandleadership.com. Is that correct?
So transparencyandleadership.com is where you can buy my book.
Okay,
But my website is, or on LinkedIn, it's just, Sheri Winesett, SheriWinesett.
awesome. Yeah, and so what we can look for in when we pick up your title is to get some direction. So tell us what we're looking for in your book, what we can expect to start working on.
Yeah, sure. So, in the book, I talk about, 7 keys, right, that are going to help you unlock your leadership potential and become a transparent leader. And so there's accountability and awareness, 360-degree accountability and awareness. That's key one. There's integrity, transparency, vision, congruence, alignment, and measurement. And what it's going to do is it's going to help women get crystal clear on their value as a leader, but also leverage their unique ability, right, as a female leader. And so challenges will be solved, much faster. Work relationships become more authentic. The team really becomes a high predictable engine, performing engine, because there's a lot of trust.
Dear Business Coach podcast is brought to you by Walker Consulting Works. Visit walkerconsultingworks.com. Presenting this fall, October 18th, The Power of Laughter, a masterclass with Clayton Fletcher at the Jefferson Center in beautiful downtown historic Roanoke, Virginia. October 18th, 2024, presented by Walker Consulting Works. This is a full day seminar at the Jefferson Center. We will have morning coffee and tea, catered lunch, learn from an international professional stand-up comedy headliner what comedians know that all business people should know. The link to the Jefferson Center dedicated URL for the Power of Laughter tickets is at walkerconsultingworks.com. And you can also take a look at the outline there for the day, what to expect from the workshop, and watch a full interview of Clayton Fletcher with me, Elizabeth Walker, on YouTube to go over his masterclass based on the #1 best-selling Amazon business book, The ROI of LOL, which Clayton Fletcher co-authored with Steve Cody. All right, check it out. That's walkerconsultingworks.com. Hey, it's Elizabeth coming to you from the Walker Consulting Works studio in Floyd, Virginia, host and producer of the Dear Business Coach podcast. Check out the live audio events every Monday at 9:30 and 9:45 a.m. Eastern Time. I have live 15-minute segments. And the first segment at 9:30 is all about being a podcast guest. If you're a professional and you'd like some tips for being on a podcast, tune in 15 minutes, 9:30 a.m. morning Eastern Time. And that's on Mondays. 9:45, right afterwards, is another 15-minute segment. And this is for storytelling for professional interviews. If you are interested in speaking to a room or on a podcast, and you're an executive, a team leader, if you have a presentation to give, if you're talking to board members, if you are talking to a camera, you want to have some stories that are signature stories, possibly that people use to get to know you. You can tell stories that share personal and professional experiences. That's at 9:45 a.m. Eastern Time. My name's Elizabeth Walker. Look for me on LinkedIn and Facebook.
Right? There's a culture that's centered around certainty, contribution, and growth that creates a higher performing team. So, those are some of the things, that the outcomes that you're going to be able to see in your organization by implementing some of these key tools.
Now, when you are when you say measurement, there's actually two things I wanted to ask you that I might sound they're technical to me, but maybe you can shed some light on. I heard you say the word measurement, right? So we have a vision we can establish, and you're building trust within the team. And but then we also want to measure kind of where we're going and are we getting there?
Yeah.
And a minute ago at the beginning of the interview, you mentioned you might talk about having members of the team share their own KPIs. And the other day in another talk, I heard you say, we talk about who owns the numbers.
Mhm.
And so if maybe I'm maybe talking about going from having a vision to building trust, and then we're measuring it, and who owns the numbers. So what are we measuring? How do we know if we're talking about the measurements that are going to get us where we want to go?
Yeah, so that's all part of the planning process, right? One of the things I talk about with vision is, you know, if you have people who are not buying into your vision, then they're not buying into you. And so that's the first thing that you have to work on. Do they trust you? Do you have credibility? Do you have authority? And once you do that and create the vision, then you actually provide them tools. This is another alignment tool and communication tool to plan it out, for 90 days. How are we going to achieve the vision? So many people are like, this is the 3-year, this is the 5-year. Well, start with the 1 year and then chunk it down into 90 days. So it's actually attainable for your team. What do I have to do in the next 90 days? Get them focused, right? Help them prioritize. And so each team member through that process will actually own a KPI that's contributing to the overarching goal. But what's great about that is they actually love it. Like they are yearning for this type of leadership because it sets really clear expectations and they know what they're shooting for. And in so many organizations, the team really doesn't know, like, how can I contribute not only as a team member, but individually to the team's goal? And so really what measurement does is it provides like the necessary feedback loop, right, to assess progress and identify areas for growth and really drive meaningful change. And most of your team, that's the kind of impact they want to have, right? They want to see success. So it's really important to cultivate as a leader a culture of measurement and accountability so that you can empower your team to strive for excellence and achieve that collective success.
So you had said that women have some unique abilities. I want to track my time here, make sure before I
Yes.
lose myself, I don't forget. What do you think it is about women that have, what unique abilities are we talking about here that Sheri thinks we have?
Well, I think you may know you have them, but women, be gosh, we because of the different hats that we wear in our life, and maybe it's also just, how we are created. But we have unique abilities like empathy. You know, we empathize because maybe we have siblings, or, maybe we're a caretaker, maybe we're a sister, maybe we're a mom. I mean, you wear so many hats. You're empathizing with so many people in your life, right? And so you can bring that to the workplace and not just be someone who is like driving actions and getting results. You can bring empathy to the workplace, which means a lot. It's treating people like they're human. Things like active listening, right? Women have to practice active listening. Prioritizing, women have to juggle. Most women do juggle a lot of things, and there's no complaint. It's not like poor us. It's just the nature of what we do. And so women have that unique ability to actually, sometimes this is a dirty word, right? But to multitask in so many different areas of their life, and can do it actually pretty well. So those are just some of the examples.
Right. And you used the word tools a couple of times when I'm asking you about, getting from a vision to measurement, and then you throw in the word tools. And do you have any tips for multitasking really quick that might be just a little fun? Do you have what's your secret to multitasking? What's your favorite kind of calendar to use, or do you have an app you like using?
Yeah. It's different for everyone. There are so many apps out there. I like when I'm working with a team, I like to use Monday. Monday's a pretty good tool. I mean, there's so many out there. There's Trello, there's Slack. I mean, but Monday actually, I found that very useful in teams. And so what's cool about Monday too is that, you can put deadlines on things and you can plan out the project, right? It's everyone gets notified. They see everybody's role in it and how it comes together. So that's a really effective tool for a really busy leader, is having everything, stacked as projects, right? With reminders, and assigned to people who are going to get it done. Another thing that works really well for me is, it's funny, like I love technology, but I still use a notebook to write out my list every day. And the reason I do that is, one, to prioritize, right? I will write out a list that, okay, here's all the things that maybe I need to do this week, but then I'll put a 1, 2, 3 by them and say, what do I need to focus on today? Because it gets really, it can be really overwhelming, like so overwhelming that you don't know where to start. And then you're starting and stopping and starting and stopping.
Yes.
So I always ask myself, what are the 3 things I have to do today to move things forward? Because everything else is going to be waiting for you tomorrow.
Right. Okay, and I go to transparencyandleadership.com by the time this episode is released, to buy the book.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and I want to follow you on LinkedIn. Is that the best place possibly?
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Instagram at that same handle, just Sheri Winesett. as my name spelled here on the podcast. It's kind of a
Yes.
tricky one to spell sometimes.
So I think I can do it. SHERIWINESETT.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay.
Yay. Awesome. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Sheri, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay. I appreciate you. Have a great day.
You too. Hey, this is Elizabeth coming back to you from the Walker Consulting Works studio. Hey, wanted to let you know about a summer series on the podcast, special release, Exposing Excellence with Roanoke Valley Leaders. This is for June, July, and August. Bring out your podcast for your summer, listening by the pool, at the beach, on a mountain climb. You never know where you'll go this summer, but you can bring the Dear Business Coach podcast with you. All right. And looking forward to learning more about you and your work. Please write into the show at dearbusinesscoachpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name's Elizabeth, coming to you from the Walker Consulting Works studio in Floyd, Virginia. This has been an episode of Dear Business Coach.